Well, Katlego, one could also argue that had he answered questions more forthrightly, and perhaps, as some people would say, honestly, he would have had to go home a lot earlier. You would have seen, I don't know how many times, the chairperson has had to say, please, 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 can you just answer the question? The evidence leader had the same problem. In fact, all of the commissioners, including the evidence leader, had the same frustration with him, because unprovoked, when he felt he was comfortable, he would just babble on and go on and on without a stop until he had to be reined in. But when there were critical questions that only he could provide answers to, and then that's when things started getting, shall we say, a little complicated, and then the sweat and the drinking of a lot of water had to come through. But let me bring you in here, Eldred. I want to pick up on what the judge said right towards the end, whether he really had to do this when we're talking about Cat Matlala and Van Wyck's donations and all of that, and whether there were no other people, that these people could have rather approached, precisely because the former city manager, whom Commissioner Mkhwanazi once said he would take a bullet for, actually said, yes, actually, he wasn't supposed to do it. It was against policy.
Absolutely. And, it seemed to reside in the purview of HRD, health and wellness, those kind of individuals, if that in fact was the concern. And the members came to him and he's justifying it by saying, but these are my members, I care for them, and it affects their operational readiness and their operational health. And then he seems to act like a lone ranger, and that's fairly disconcerting. Vuyo, but the bigger thing is, and we've heard from a number of EMPD people, and as we were talking during the day and we had this long testimony, I was trying to think about why are we so upset by all of this? And it's a little disturbing, it's confusing, and yet what it does, and what we've seen consistently throughout, it's actually a window into local government, where bureaucrats are in fact neither governing nor managing. But what we see is a tick box exercise. They do the very minimum, they do what they think is necessary to comply, and beyond that, do the job that they think they can get away with. And that's worrisome. So they are seen to comply rather than in fact are complying.
But what lies at the heart of it is what I've been battling with. Is it sheer incompetence, or are people doing these things, or the sort of things that he did, the way he did them, because conveniently he could then project himself as the guy who actually makes things happen. And throughout the day today, he tried to really drive that point home. Of course, whether it's true or not is anyone's guess, I think, from everything that we've seen and heard. But he always comes back to the thing that says, I'm the guy who was actually doing the right things, or trying to do the right things, or taking care of the personnel that nobody wants to take care of. And he points also to a very dysfunctional, dare I say, relationship between himself and his superiors. One who doesn't care, doesn't read emails, calls him twice or thrice a day to find out about something. And the other one, who was the head, whom he says this today and says, this 1 minute, and says the next thing the next minute. So he then had to fill the vacuum, although he doesn't put it in those words.
That's right. And in filling that vacuum, he then does what he thinks is the right thing to do.
And God knows what reasons.
And what gets the job done, because others were neither governing nor managing. And they were administering and just doing the right thing. And when things go wrong, or somebody seems not to be sticking to policy, they intervene to then think to correct it. So that's when he says they then make a noise, and in making a noise, others panic and reverse decisions that in fact has been made. And that really is how we're currently governing at local government level, which creates a bit of a hiatus. It creates an inertia, and it creates the stop-start-go where somebody takes the initiative for whatever reasons, and we show there are benefits to him, because he was saying we're getting additional resources, we got 2 more vehicles, and then there's a bit of a noise and we have to reverse that decision. And yet I gave, well, the opportunity to get some blue lights, but after all it was registered in our name. So we still haven't got the accusation, Vuyo, and that is that he somehow personally benefited from them. Whether that's through political connection, whether that's financially, or whether that's in any other personal interest of his have been satisfied through this, other than maybe, at this stage, a claim, or satisfying his need, as he says, to serve his members better.
Well, hopefully those questions will be clarified at some point. But if we take it back to where it almost started, in other words, forget about General Mkhwanazi, General Mkhwanazi, not Commissioner. What he said, and when he first appeared, and subsequent to his appearance, was that of the National Police Commissioner. Is it fair to say, because whether this commission will indeed be able to, have the kind of evidence that you will need to say, convict or get Commissioner Mkhwanazi investigated and subsequently, charged, and then going to jail for whatever he may have done that would be wrong is another matter that I'm saying we can't really address right now. But it does appear that, as you were saying, we have no leadership, or had no leadership at Ekurhuleni that actually was ready, willing, and able to do what they were supposed to do. I think that has pretty much come through. But does it go beyond the leadership of Ekurhuleni? What about legislation that actually allows or enables these municipal police departments to actually ensure that they fall within a legal framework that is not only legal but also operational, but also that allows these entities to do what they were meant to do in the first instance? Where is the system broken? Absolutely.
Where is the system broken? Vuyo, we've alluded to this before. There's a lack of political and public governance. We've alluded to the fact that the Office of the National Commissioner has a role to play, and SAPS as an institution are the custodians of Metro Police. And sadly, the fact is that we have executive mayors who have executive authority, much like the president, in fact more than the president. They can't even be removed by a president, that has a department that is closer to the people and closer to the challenges we face. And what we see is a complete lack of management and governance. But we have people who feel the need that what they have to do is strive for efficiency, for compliance, even if it's the minimum compliance, over effectiveness. And that is part of the problem. And for that, they think they need to then engage other resources because they see themselves ailing. And this is in fact what he's saying is, we couldn't do a job ourselves, we needed outside help, and I reached out to other people who were willing to help me.
And I'm finding it very hard, to accept that Ekurhuleni are alone.
Absolutely.
In this. I just think that a lot of information has come out from people who know about the situation in Ekurhuleni, and similar things may be happening in other municipal police departments around the country as well. But I want us to park this conversation because we still need to look forward to, or throw forward to tomorrow, what's going to happen and how we see that particular situation unfolding.